if I was to say, you know, what's the best thing about being vegan, you wouldn't just go, food. You know what I mean? Or just go, yeah, it's good. You know, that kind of thing. You'd be like, oh, the best thing about being vegan is all the food and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Avoid looking at the cameras.
Of course.
I'm your reference.
Yeah.
But don't feel like you've got to keep eye contact the whole time.
Okay.
Just like we're having a conversation.
Yeah. Well, we are.
And that's it.
There just happens to be a camera there as well.
Yeah.
Sorry. You
No, that's all right. Stay put.
Stay right there.
We have you where we want
Behave.
you. Yep. Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
And just as much as you want to answer, as much as you want to give. Are you more ethics, environment, health, world hunger vegan? Are you kind of it all?
Kind of it all, yeah.
The logical.
Sorry.
The logical vegan.
Yeah, it started out as a health reason, which I'll explain, and then
it just all makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
cool.
a lot of those questions kind of all merge into one, or are interrelated.
Yeah. Because there are like vegans who kind of do it for different reasons, and you know, we interviewed some of the abolitionists who were like didn't give a fuck about health. They were just like,
I know.
And they're the intense ones.
We were just down in World Vegan Day in Melbourne, and listening to Philip Wallen speaking again.
Wow.
I could have cried. It's just what a man, and he just puts it so clearly, so simply. Yeah. You know, and yet he's a gentleman. Yeah. That's the right approach, in my opinion, because the other approach goes against every world leader that has taken a peaceful path. Has stuck to that peaceful path, and they've achieved way more than anyone that practiced violence. Way more.
That's true.
Because they'll just get rid of you. If you're violent, they'll just get rid of you.
That's right. But it also contradicts itself, because it's like you're talking about non-violence to one animal, yet you spew all this hatred.
What, this is not animal?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Somehow this becomes different.
That's right. And other people, because I've met them through, that's why I stopped going to protests and stuff, because they were so intense and cruel, and they couldn't even communicate effectively.
No.
They would be hiding behind their signs and angry, and it's like, but you're not actually, no one's walking away going, oh, I'm really inspired by that person today. They're going, staying away from that.
Yeah.
So, and I can understand, like, it's easy to get angry because it's awful.
Yeah.
But
it's a crime.
you're not you won't change minds with that kind of intensity.
No.
You'll just support violence in a way, verbal or otherwise.
People don't change because they think they're wrong. People change because they have a personal insight about the world, about their place in the world and what they can do to change the world. So being angry, being aggressive, well, the world's full of that anyway, so how does that make any difference? How does that change anything?
And that's what we're aiming to stop.
Yeah. So how do we stop it with violence? We can't.
No, it doesn't. Well, that's what, like, the state of the world is going around in circles, because people go, oh, you did this to me, so I'll do this to you. You know?
I was a practicing Buddhist for about 14 years, and one of my favourite quotes from the Buddha is, hating others is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And that's what the aggression does. It just poisons us. It doesn't actually achieve anything. You know, of course, it's upsetting to see what's happening, but I was giving a talk at the vegan fair in London, the London Vegan Fair in 2011, and I said that if you really want to make a change in the world, you've got to see that your state of mind is more important than anything else, because if your state of mind is calm, you'll possibly come up with the solution to all the problems we're seeing in the world. But if you're lost in your thinking, you're angry and you're upset, you'll never come up with a solution, because you can't think creatively when you're angry. It's impossible. So your focus is limited, and then your achievements will be very limited by your very actions. It's just, there's no other way. It's nature. There's no way of escaping that.
Absolutely. Are we recording? No.
Good.
Good. We gotcha.
Good.
I was just like, oh, please, I hope we're recording now. Okay, cool. So let's start then. A quick introduction. Hi, I'm Dean, and I've been vegan for...
Okay, well, hi, I'm Dean Rees-Evans. I've been vegan for 26 years now.
Ooh, amazing. All right, so do you remember life before vegan?
Oh yes, I remember life before vegan very well. Life before vegan looked like I didn't like food much. I didn't like what my parents were feeding me. I didn't like the idea of meat or fish. So I was a fussy eater, and it was really difficult for my parents. My mother died when I was 8, so by the time... Well, we spent a year with my grandparents, and of course grandparents always spoil you a bit more than parents do. So I lived on chips and beans and things like that, things that I would eat and could eat, and so there was no fuss. But then my father remarried, and my introduction to the gross side of eating meat was my stepmother loved meat. So almost every meal was horrifying for me, and I remember one day sitting at the table. I was about 14, and I've always had rather prominent veins. And I was looking at it was in the summer, and I was looking at my veins, and then I was looking at this piece of meat on my plate, and I thought, this is like cannibalism. I'm eating something just like myself. I can't do it. So to this day, my parents still don't know this. We had the world's best fed dog, because every piece of meat that they put on my plate went to the dog sitting under the table next to me. But then they started working out, there's something wrong with this picture. The dog's not eating his dog food anymore. So I had to go to plan B, and plan B was fill my pockets with toilet tissue before dinner and wrap it up and flush it down the toilet. So that's where all my meat went. So life before being vegan wasn't always pleasant, but I had strategies that worked until I became first vegetarian and then later vegan.
Wow. So it's almost like you were born with this something in you going, it's
Yeah.
not right.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that my mother didn't eat meat, and my father didn't eat meat until he met my stepmother either. And my grandmother on my father's side didn't eat meat until the doctor said, oh, you've got to eat a little bit of chicken because you're really sick. And she believed him, so she did. But she, tiny little pieces. She used to eat like a sparrow, so.
Yeah, wow. So, I mean, you say that, like, you sort of compared yourself with what was on your plate.
Yes.
But before that, did you have, like, quite a close bond with animals growing up?
We didn't actually have any pets. Again, this is ironic. We didn't actually have any pets in the house until we lived with our stepmother. So I always loved animals, sure. And I always thought I'd end up working with animals, which I never have. But I certainly just thought there was something wrong and kind of barbaric about killing an animal to put food in our body. It just, everything about it, the taste and the texture, and because we didn't have a lot of money, the meat would always be cheap meat, and the sausages would have bone grit in them. So even to today, when I'm eating something like a lentil dal, I always say I have grit karma, because if I'm eating lentil dal and there's a little bit of grit in there, I can't eat anymore. I just feel sick, because it reminds me, even now after all these years, it still reminds me of bone grit in meat and the horror that struck in my mind at the time. We shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. This is wrong.
So do you have a very early memory then of, like, before the comparing,
Yeah.
of knowing that it is animals that are killed to become meat?
I think I don't actually remember making that logical understanding of it, but that somewhere deep inside me, I think I must have done. I think that one thing that I think came out in the last few years was I started watching when I was about 10 years old. There was a TV series, a Californian-based TV series. It's never been bettered since, and they ran 3 seasons. It was called Kung Fu. It was really nothing about Kung Fu. It was about living as a perfect person, as a perfect human being. And when I bought the first DVD series and we sat and watched it, I sat and watched it with my wife, she said, oh my God, is that why you became vegetarian? Is that why you practiced ethics? Is that why you became a Buddhist, etc., etc.? And I suppose that was partly it, because he didn't eat meat. In fact, he wouldn't eat anything from animals. He wouldn't ride horses. So there was this beautiful relationship, and he was like my peer. He was master, really. He was the one who was teaching me how to live my life. And I realised that what I was seeing around me with my family and the world wasn't right, and what I was seeing here was right, that this was the way to live. He was like a raw foodist. He would take roots from the ground and clean them and eat them, and that's how he lived in the wild. So I think there was a deep unconscious knowing that doing that is just wrong. So I always had the abhorrence of doing it, but then somewhere in the back of my mind there was that connection that it is wrong to do this, that we shouldn't be taking from animals which is not willingly given, which is everything. They don't give themselves, they don't give their produce, we take it.
Yeah, I know. I've got a friend who's, she's all about yoga and meditation, and she was telling me once that, and she still eats meat, and she was telling me that, but what I do is when I get my meat, I pray and I thank the animal for its sacrifice and pray that it never suffered. And I'm like, but it's too late.
Yeah, it has suffered.
It's suffered, and also it didn't sacrifice anything for you.
No.
Like, someone murdered that animal so you could eat it.
Yeah.
Please don't confuse like a brave sacrifice so you could eat when you could go buy some veggies.
No.
So that always drives me crazy. Okay, cool. So what I'm getting is basically, I feel like you were just born to be vegan.
Yeah.
It was inevitable, and it wasn't so, correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't so much la da 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 da. Oh, light bulb moment. Shit. This is apart from when you were describing the veins. But it's kind of like it was always going to be your destiny.
Yeah.
So tell me, what went from you rolling up your meat down the toilet to going, no, I'm vegetarian?
Well, I think it was steak. I think I was presented with steak and I just thought, I can't, the smell made me feel nauseous, and I just decided, and I told my parents, that's it, I'm never eating meat again. There was a lot of argument, and they said, well, you're in our house, you have to do what we say. And I said, well, look, you can buy the meat, you can put it on my plate, but I will never eat it again. I've made my decision, that's the end of it. So you do what you want, I'm going to continue to do what I want. And it didn't work out too well, so I just left home and made my new life. It was a real sharp learning curve, because I actually had to learn how to cook in a very different way. And so I took a jaunt to the local health food store and bought a book. And I think my second vegan cookery book was Eva Batt's Vegan Cookery, which was probably really helped me out a lot, because I cooked some great meals from that. Obviously, once I'd learnt to cook, then you just go straight into adaptation and just make stuff up as you go along. As long as you mix all the right things together, you usually end up with, and you're not frightened of spices, you usually end up with something pretty tasty.
Absolutely. So can you tell me that little story again, just a bit more condensed, and maybe pop in your age at the time? Like when I was whatever age, I decided that that's it, I'm not touching meat anymore. My parents told me I had no choice as long as I lived under their roof, so I left home.
Yeah.
Just something very condensed
Sure.
like that, just for me.
Yeah. That's
Can I just check that? How are we going there? That's right. I'll just get that story from you again.
Okay, so when I was 19, I decided, that was it. I couldn't face meat anymore. It was the one last smell. I couldn't do it anymore. So I told my parents, that's it, I'm not eating meat anymore. They said, you have to while you live with us. And I said, look, you can buy it, you can put it on my plate, but I'm never touching it again. And that's my final decision. It didn't work out too well, so I left home. And then I needed to learn how to cook. And I went to the local health food store, and I've never looked back since. The one thing that I've always said since then is that I have enjoyed every single meal I've ever had since I became first vegetarian and then not that long later vegan. And that's not what I could say before then.
Absolutely. So